All right. I think we're live. Let me double check those. Uh,
Said broadcast was live. I think this.
yeah, I can see that as well. I've never like done this side of it. Okay, there we go. I can at least see us on YouTube. And it just told me that I'm live on Facebook, so we're good to go.
All right.
Yeah. So for
Cool. Cool.
anybody listening out there, just so that you know, you can always comment on these in the chat. It will show up on my screen so that I can see that. It's just Sam and I tonight because it seems that the flu has claimed many victims this month, not just for
Oh
this
no.
chat.
Good
Yeah,
grief.
I've had a lot of friends cancel on things recently, so
That darn triple demic, or whatever they're calling it these days.
if you haven't gotten your flu shot, this is a good reason to.
Yeah, I doubled up on the latest COVID booster and flu back in late September, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. I also was able to get it earlier this year and recently got the COVID booster. So, I am also it's why we're here.
Oh boy, yeah.
Um,
Welcome, welcome
so
to the holiday season.
So this month we listened to Tracy Chapman's her debut album, which is also called Tracy Chapman. It's a self-titled album. I'm just going to give a little bit of a background on this one because, again, I always think the story behind albums is fascinating. Um, Most of this album was actually a demo that was re-recorded. I think every song except for Fast Car was on her original demo. She was discovered by a one of her peers when she was at Tufts University, whose dad just happened to work for Elektra Records. They listened to it, they immediately recorded it. Um, it was She was signed in 1987. The album was released in like April of 1988, and it was kind of successful, but not really. And then she got the opportunity to appear at Nelson Mandela's 70th birthday tribute, and that was like in July of 1988, so a few months after. And I guess she had 3 songs that she was allowed to play, and they didn't get a lot of feedback on it, but there was a technical difficulty, and Stevie Wonder had to pull out of the concert due to a technical difficulty on his end, and they brought Tracy Chapman back out, and that's when she
Mm.
played Fast Car, which to this day is actually her best known hit. And the one that I knew. I think the rest of this album I kind of just like had a I knew it existed, but um wasn't really familiar with it, and this was my, like, 2nd or 3rd time listening to the album, and I sat there on Spotify with the lyrics going, reading it as I went through it. So,
Yeah, I pulled up the lyrics right now just so I could reread from some of the tracks.
she's an incredible writer.
She really is. Yeah. Incredible
Yeah.
voice, writer, like all of it.
Yeah, a lot of her music, especially for her debut album, some of her later stuff, I wonder about, but it definitely reads to me like she wrote the lyrics and then put music to the lyrics.
Mm-hmm. She was telling stories. I need to. I don't know if it's the case for a lot of people. They tend to absorb the music more than the lyrics. You have to like. I guess it's a right left brain thing. I'm not sure. At least maybe with me, but she talked about. She mentioned, I guess, turbulent family life uh and riots. Where did she grow up? Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah, she grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, but, I think a lot of it was observations, like, a lot of them
Mm.
she's not the narrator
Mm.
of the
That's
stories.
what I was trying to figure out. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think she saw a lot of what was going on around her and wrote stories about other people, probably based a little bit on her experiences. But
Yeah,
yeah, the opening track, um, sorry, I lost track of everything in my window, so I'm trying to do 4 things at once.
so many tabs
Um,
open. I know the feel.
yeah, Talking About a Revolution,
Oh
which was
yes,
the opening, sets the tone, I think, for the entire album.
yeah, I like that as the opening track. What was my favorite track? I think "She's Got Her Ticket" might have been my favorite track on this album. Well, I don't know if I had a favorite one, but I liked "She's Got Her Ticket" a lot.
Yeah, for me, I think my favorite one is, Behind the Wall, just because it's a cappella
Hmm.
and, um, I don't listen to lyrics either. I listen to music first and then have to go back in and focus on the lyrics, and it results in me really liking a lot of songs and going back to listen to the lyrics and being like, wait 1 second.
Yeah,
Oops." Um, but it's completely a cappella. It's doesn't feel like it follow like, I can't imagine what the music that would have been behind it would have been, um, but it feels like an interesting rhythm to me for an a cappella song, and it's just very talking about listening to domestic violence from the other side of the wall and not being able to
mhm.
the police will do nothing about it.
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember re-listening to that part.
um, it's haunting.
Yeah, listening to it after the third time, it kind of got to me while I was working today. Her parents divorced when she was 4, according to the her Wikipedia article. She was raised by her mother, bought her a ukulele at age 3, and she began playing guitar and writing songs at age 8. Wow.
Yeah. It's interesting that they list, like, the musical start of that because, like I said, I kind of view her as a writer
Hmm.
with music as a background. Um, yeah, fascinating album. I really wanted to do it, especially because it is so focused on lyrics, and the last album we did was completely instrumental, and this is a major flip. Are you a fan of, like, the folk, like, contemporary folk music?
Yeah, to an extent. I have a wide range of tastes in terms of genres. I think I've grown up with Tracy Chapman's music because my family were fans of hers. A lot of people in my family, aunts and uncles, and my dad used to play her music a lot, or it was also on the radio probably. So yeah, goes her music in general goes back with me
It has a little bit of a nostalgia feel to it.
somewhat. I was listening to this album. I could sort of hear influences of like early '90s alt rock a little bit, and some similarities, and also some reggae, hints of reggae in a couple of the tracks. I think "She's Got Her Ticket" was the reggae one.
Yeah, she definitely has one. I don't remember off the top of my head. This album's fascinating to me also because it was released in 1988, and so it kind of it sounds like singer-songwriters from like the late 60s and 70s to me that just kind of like fell off in the 80s.
Yeah,
And so I have to imagine that like her coming out with this album was just like listening to it on the radio was just something entirely different than the other things coming out at that time.
yeah, it definitely rang like very late '80s to me too. Yeah, and to a lesser extent, early '90s alt rock, like Soul Asylum or something.
I'm trying to see what the other Grammy nominees for this year were, but I don't actually recognize any of them. So,
Yeah. Do they make music like Tracy Chapman music anymore?
I mean, you will find it. There's all sorts of music out there. I'm blinking
Or-
on ideas right now, but I know I've heard them recently. Um, so I wanted to know because this album was it was nominated for a lot of Grammys the year it was released, but these were the other albums for Best Album of the Year, which she was nominated for. It was Simple Pleasures by Bobby McFerrin,
Mhm.
Nothing Like the Sun by Sting, Roll With It from Steve Winwood, and then Faith by George Michael was the winner.
Oh, wow. Well, not a dishonorable tune to lose to.
I, you know, it's funny because now it's playing in my head and just thinking about the juxtaposition between the two.
Do, do, do. Gotta have faith. Yeah. I I was staying at a hostel in New Orleans and I was traveling one summer and some like guys that had guitars and then they just spontaneously started playing and singing that song. I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. I just got here and I'm liking it already. Yeah, so
It's a good track.
yeah. R.I.P. George Michael. We miss you.
So you already were familiar with this album.
Not this album, but I think the songs that I've heard by far the most of hers are Turn Her Back Around and that was probably her one of the most played songs of hers. And The Promise, that was play oh my gosh. That was played at my summer camp. It wasn't like and this was after that song would have come out, but this everybody at my summer camp was obsessed with this song because it was, you know, I don't know what that song was originally inspired by, but it was at the end of camp, like, oh, boo hoo hoo, we're all leaving. Let's play this song until we all cry. It was that's how I remember that song, The Promise.
I so I find a lot of these albums because like I actively try to go back and listen to them, and the first time that I listened to this album through doing that, I was like, "Man, the only song I know by Tracy Chapman is Fast Car." And that feels very wrong.
Yeah.
But um yeah, and I think even the first time I didn't listen to the lyrics, so I had no idea just like how like sociopolitical the whole album is and how it's very observational but for a group of people that I have no basis for understanding. And
Yeah.
she does it in a way that like does make me feel like it was absolutely her background. And then I read about her background and it doesn't actually seem like that. They're probably stories of people that she's watched.
Hmm.
And that is an insane skill to have. So
Yeah. Yeah, I feel I'm coming from the similar perspective. I feel the same way. I was thinking along those lines as I was listening to this album too and dissecting the lyrics. And like especially with the times that we're living in right now.
yeah, it's kind of disheartening to be like, "Oh, this album was released like 33 years ago."
Yeah.
And in it, it sounds like gearing up for things to change, and in reality, like, it feels very much like an album that could have been written yesterday.
I know, yeah. I was thinking about that.
Yeah, and it's all, I mean, obviously not entirely because there's some reverb on it, but it's an acoustic album, which is pretty rare for the late '80s, and that was specifically why they wanted to record it. And I think
Mhm.
that also adds to she's front and center. I think every single one of these songs, except for, the one that's a cappella, they all have like a very audible like guitar lick in them, and I can't tell you what any of them are, but I remember her voice in every single song.
Yeah,
So
yeah, guitar lick. Yeah, I'm just thinking for a moment about just some of the patterns I noticed from when I did take a little bit of I studied guitar a little bit, but I wouldn't say I quite got to the level of proficiency. So I was trying to analyze the guitar chords a little bit.
I know nothing of guitar. I'm a wind instrument player, so I can like listen into tones and things and listen to like the melody of things, but I guess not lyrics. But as soon as there's like a chord, I'm like, whoosh.
You can read and compose music, right? So if you can do that, you don't even if guitar players can learn with tabs. So at least you have that going.
I did have to like write guitar things, and every single time I tried to write something for a guitar, they'd always be like, "Yeah, you can get the same sound if you just write it this other way, in the way that fingers actually work." And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, the hand exercising alone.
I think that she does the guitar herself on this album.
Does she well, at least in the videos that I've been scanning of her, the live performances that I've seen her playing and singing. Is that mostly how she performs?
I think so. So for this album, according to the credits from the album's booklet, she played acoustic guitar, percussion, rhythm guitar, and vocals, and then somebody else played
Mm-hmm.
steel guitar. And then there were other percussionists and drummers and a variety of people playing on each of them,
Steel.
including an electric violin, which I don't actually remember. So I'll have to go back again.
Yeah, this is an album I could listen to, many times without, tiring of it or feeling like I've overplayed it.
It's a 40-minute album, and I listened to it earlier today because um, I wanted to be prepared. um, it went by very fast.
It all
Granted,
flows.
yeah, it flows very well. It almost feels like opening with, and I think that's why I said before, talking about revolution feels like it sets the tone for the rest of the album.
Hmm.
But also in talking about revolution, she talks about waiting in a welfare line, and then I think in my head, I imagine every song after that just being a different person waiting in the line.
Yeah, I remember the part about the welfare line. I'm reading the lyrics again right now to that song. Poor people gonna rise up and get their share. Poor people gonna rise up and take what's theirs.
I think that was the song that, what's his name? I want to get everyone's names right, but I keep scrolling through the page. Um,
That sounds familiar.
Brian Kopelman is the person, the tough student that found her, whose dad worked for Electric Records. Um, that was the song that he heard and was like, we gotta pass this along. So she recorded the demo like at the Tufts studio, like their student radio station, and he sent that demo over. And it just feels like this album is such a gift, and there was so many just lucky things that it ever even got to the point it did, between just the right person hearing it at the right time,
Hmm.
and then to Stevie Wonder having technical difficulties.
Yeah, talk about quote unquote seemingly something meant to be. That was how she. That was her opportunity to get exposure. If had
Yeah.
that not happened with Stevie Wonder, she might not have gotten that same exposure.
Yeah, especially because she didn't play fast cars in her own set. And I wonder what songs she did perform or like where she would be now
Now, hmm,
if she didn't get that
hmm,
second chance.
yeah,
Yeah, so she was signed, sorry, it just came up. She was signed to Elektra Records and they started trying to find producers, but nobody would take it because they kept turning it down because dance pop and synth pop was the most popular at the time, and that's what all the producers
hmm,
wanted to work on. So they eventually found David Kirschenbaum, who said he'd been looking for something acoustic to do for some time.
hmm.
He said that there was a sense in the industry of a slight boredom with everything out there, and that people might be willing to listen again to lyrics and to someone who actually made statements.
Actually, listen to lyrics. So, I think that's might be most music lovers.
I mean, I love music and it takes me a little bit to listen to lyrics, but when I listen to something like this, I'm usually like, I like this. I should probably go back and find out what it's about.
Yeah, I know. And sometimes, do you ever feel silly when you go back and then you listen to some of the lyrics and because some music is, the music sounds more upbeat than way more upbeat than the lyrics would suggest some of the time, and then you go
So
listen to it and it's like, what was I grooving to? This is kind of a intense story.
if I am just like listening through music and something hits at the right like beats per minute, I will like use it to hula hoop to. And
Hmm.
then I'll watch my hula hoop video back and I'm like, what what was I hooping to?
What's what's a good hula hoop song?
It depends on what you want to do. Right now, I like Mitski's "Love Me More" is my go-to song for hula hooping. I
Hmm.
wonder if we as like a people are about to go back to this heavy lyric time. There's so much out there that I kind of miss it. Or or concept albums, which this isn't, but feels like it could be. Of just something that's a whole concise piece that's meant to be played from start to finish.
Yeah, I don't know anything remotely like Tracy Chapman in terms of lyrical. I've been listening to a lot of kind of trip hoppy electronic mixes these days. Sometimes ambient trip hoppy mixes by, I don't know, DJs that just have their own YouTube channels. Like people I could name them, and I don't know if you would have necessarily heard of them unless you
I
happen to
I
look at these same
probably
channels.
wouldn't, but uh my boyfriend probably would have. I used to work with synthesizers for a very, very long time, and so I know like a lot of people who are adjacent to that, and my boyfriend was
Yeah.
like, "Oh man, it's a like usually they'll have like lights going or like they'll do cool things during it," and he gets into that.
Do you feel like every other person you've known has been a DJ either at one day or one point in their life? It feels like that sort of describes a lot of people I've met, at least in LA. That like vinyls are really big, for example, and people, they'll turntables. Yeah, come and have free drinks and watch me spin these records. It seems like that's the thing that people do in LA.
I had a whole slew of people come to mind, but it's not every one of them.
Every other, you said every other, every second or third person
Yeah, I especially
around there.
because of the whole synth thing. It's very, very easy for people to just be like, "Oh yeah, look at my stuff that's synth adjacent."
Well, yeah, now we have AI art and all this other stuff. It's going to lead to God knows what.
Honestly, I'm hoping it leads to just the system shutting down and us getting more things like Tracy Chapman again.
We'll just start back to square one, analog, everything is non-digital because the internet blows up. Everything's been copied of a copy. Or with AI art, how do you publish your stuff online? Maybe you can't unless you want to have it copied or be able
This
to have
is
it copied.
this is a discussion I can go down a rabbit hole on,
Yeah.
and it's a discussion for a different day, man.
Tangent that doesn't belong in this video. Sorry.
No, tangent I could definitely go down though.
But yeah, we need more albums like this one in general.
I'm sure that they exist and they're just not in my purview.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
yeah, there's just so much stuff coming out, and like we said with this one, it was kind of just the idea that she was able to get on that stage a second time, and it's entirely possible that Tracy Chapman would have just like disappeared into the abyss of music that exists out there, and because of just a series of coincidences, she made it into the major zeitgeist. And today's climate of just being able to come out with everything, just
Mm-hmm.
I think the like the president of Spotify said that he thinks that the right way to come up with music is just to constantly be creating content and to constantly, and like Spotify kind of works better if you release things as a single until it builds up to be an album. And I wonder if that's part of the reason, because Taylor Swift just released an album that
Hmm.
um, was maintained every single spot on the top 10 Billboard at the same time.
Oh yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's a part of it. It's supposed to be good. I wasn't, I guess, really into her music in the early days, but I think now I might be getting more and more into her music.
she's had a journey, and you can definitely
Mhm.
watch it happen. But Beyonce also
Yeah.
does that occasionally where they don't announce that they're having albums and then they'll just release them all at once,
Mm-hmm.
like almost to get around that release one single at a time to stay. I mean, granted, we're not going to forget about Taylor Swift or Beyonce in their downtime,
Right.
but yeah, I definitely miss the days of um, people just having a full album that feels like it's a coherent event that you listen to the entire thing, as opposed to now where I get one song at a time and then, yeah, I
Yeah.
know every song on the album. It's just that I've gotten it like in a package now.
Yeah.
I
With my
think
listening, it can be all over the place sometimes. So it's rare that yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It's rare that I listen to a half hour plus long album. Well, it depends on the day or the week, really, for me. For
I
me, music is so mood dependent.
I try to listen to full albums, but I I don't think I've ever gotten as invested in lyrics and what something is about quite like an album like this. I mean, because you have Tracy Chapman, or like going back to like the songwriter days of the 60s and 70s where you have like Bob Dylan, who won a Nobel Prize in literature.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah.
In literature? Huh. Uh, did I hear that once before? Or
Um,
that 90s band, The Wallflowers, if anybody remembers who the heck they are.
I mean, I remember them.
They're the front guy is Bob Dylan's son. I didn't know
Oh.
that pretty recently. I think that's what even made me think of the Wallflowers.
Sorry, now I'm looking into
Dylan
the
literature.
Bob Dylan. Um, yeah, there I think used to be a very strong hold in lyrics in general that I think has been over the years pushed into a sort of top line scenario where it's mostly based on the music and less around what the lyrics are going to be. And it's in a way, it's kind of nice to hear about that this has happened before where nobody cared about the lyrics and then there's just one person like, let's push the acoustic lyrics.
It makes me feel silly. Yeah, like it makes me feel silly for not listening to lyrics more. But I think it's just, I don't know, almost something I can't help sometimes.
Do you think if this album came out today, like if you heard Fast Car on the radio while you were driving earlier and then they were like, this person just released this album, would you just like pass it by and be like, I'll just move back into whatever it
Hmm.
is that you're listening to at that time?
That's a really good question.
It's something that I think about a lot when I think about older songs or like even how my dad listens to music is very different than how I listen to music.
Yeah, when in listening to this album, maybe I'd probably heard it before, but if I'm listening to it this week, last week for the first time in a while, it definitely did not feel this time period. It felt, like I said, very late 80s, 90s alt rock, somewhat alt rock.
Phoebe Bridgers. Phoebe Bridgers writes lyrics that aren't as like politically heavy, but definitely when I listen to her, I'm like, oh man, I have to go back and listen to the lyrics again. Like she's actually saying words that are a part of this. In the sense of like they tell stories. Um, I'll have to figure it out. Like I feel the need to like go find other like lyrical heavy things that make me just go sit in a dark room and listen to them and contemplate my life afterwards.
Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill.
Yes.
That's sort of a lyricy. That album's popped into my head since we've been talking about lyrics. The lyrics e albums. Very different from Tracy Chapman, of course, but yeah, that album, that's a start to finish kind of album. I feel amazing.
I'm okay, so that one was 1995. So it's still kind of same era. I don't know where that era ends.
I don't know either.
Um but it is still around that time. I don't know, this feels like
Like mid
this
'90s, about.
I think this is going to be a project for me now of just like finding newer artists, like artists that have come out in the past like 5 or 10 years of who's carrying on this like singer-songwriter. Because even in singer-songwriter like world, it's like every now and then you'll get a line and the rest of the time it's just like me relaxing.
Yeah,
Um, so maybe I should just be paying more attention to lyrics.
I think in the age that we're living in now versus then, it's also there's just so much online, that can distract you from even what you're currently paying attention to. I think that makes it, in a way, makes the hunt harder. I don't know.
I mean, I went to music school. I had to write pop songs and things like that, and I struggled with lyrics to the point where I refuse to write lyrics anymore. I will only write instrumental things. It's a lot more natural for me, but I always viewed lyrics as like this incredibly hard thing of coming up with something that is coherent, tells a story in some way, that moves, has a start, middle, end, and
Yeah.
also goes with music is one of the most impressive things to me and something that I can't do. And every time my boyfriend just goes, "What are you talking about? Lyrics are easy."
They're
Have you
so
ever
easy.
listened to lyrics? Because most of the time they mean nothing.
Well, maybe that's true to an extent.
Um, and despite that, I still don't listen to lyrics.
Adam, what about the Adam Sandler albums? Isn't that all lyrics and not much music? I'm kidding.
He's a huge fan of Weird Al.
Oh yeah, Weird Al. He- I'm trying to remember which song of his. Oh, he parodied "Party in the USA" Miley Cyrus. Oh, "Party in the CIA," but I haven't seen that video yet. I'm like, oh, I didn't know he parodied that one. I don't know what
I
he's been doing lately.
I assume that he has parodied every song.
Every song there is, yeah.
The most recent thing is because he just had a biopic released, and Daniel Radcliffe is starring as Weird Al in the Weird Al biopic. Uh,
Oh,
Weird Al tried to do a parody version of the theme of Harry Potter and got shut down.
I just googled what you're talking about, and now I'm seeing a picture of Daniel Radcliffe and Weird Al waltzing or whatever, hand in
I
hand with her dancing.
I mean, if anybody was going to do it, it was going to have to be Daniel Radcliffe, to be completely honest.
Daniel Radcliffe can has some rapping ability. I know that. He was on Jimmy Fallon. He sung Black Alicious Alphabet Aerobics. What's that called?
What a what a fascinating fella.
Yeah,
And I think one of the few actors that I think has fully escaped his child acting.
right. It seems like he didn't deal with any of the uh, the child acting bug, if you will, that bites them all, or seems to bite too many of them.
Well, I just mean that like there's a lot of actors who did do series that are extremely long and they have a problem leaving them. Like they will always be seen.
Especially Harry Potter, it went on for like ever.
Yeah, his
On
entire childhood, and he tried so hard to escape it, and I think he did a pretty good job of it, honestly. He's been in a lot of stuff, and in general, I think he's a pretty good actor. So I haven't seen the Weird Al biopic.
I want to watch that now though. That sounds entertaining. I don't know what he's done lately. I don't know what non-Harry Potter movies he's done, but check them out. I stopped keeping up with Harry Potter a while ago. Also,
I haven't watched any of the new things. I am oh, I'm going down a weird place. Um,
yeah, we're going
because
off the topic of the album a little bit, but that's okay.
in trying to bring it back to the album, I started saying, did Weird Al ever do a parody of Tracy Chapman? And I feel like that would, one, be very weird if he did, because her music doesn't feel like something that you should parody.
Weird, even for Weird Al. Yeah, no, she's not a parody. He did, Poppy. He parodied Poppy.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
like top 40, 50 hits throughout the years, throughout the ages. Yeah, her music is not. It seems like it would be pretty silly to parody her music.
Sorry, I in this, somebody else made their own list of like the 5 best Tracy Chapman songs. And their list was For My Lover, which is on this album, and I thought it was the one that made me like go back because I heard her observations, but For My Lover really felt like a song where she was not the narrator of it. She had a different narrator, and she did a amazing job of making me feel.
Yeah, I
um,
remember that one.
um, yeah, she's a very private person though, so I don't know where the line.
Or one of those things where might be alluding to somebody she knew. without actually saying who they are, type of thing.
So yeah, they liked For My Lover, Talking About a Revolution, Give Me One Reason, Baby Can I
Yeah.
Hold You, and Fast Car. And I think of those, Give Me a Reason is the only one that's not on this debut album.
That was a song that I incorrectly titled a little bit ago. I called it "Turn It Back Around." Yeah, it's give me one reason.
I am not I've listened to a couple of other songs, but I haven't gone through her other albums. And from what I heard, this one particularly feels like the lyrics came first, and the other ones sound like, yeah, they're still very lyric heavy, but they feel almost more
Like pop hits.
standardized,
Hmm.
maybe.
Like
This one,
popular music, I guess. Pop hits.
yeah, this entire album, like the way that the lyrics get split up between lines, it feels unnatural almost to me, which might be why I get brought back into the lyrics, is because it's just like, wait, that sentence. Oh, oh, like I'm
It's
waiting for her to finish a sentence.
it's usually like poetry, music lyrics. I mean, that's
Yeah,
basically what it is, right? Often, most of the time.
it's what I think it should be. Um, but then the lyrics that when I struggle with lyrics, the lyric that always gets brought back to me by somebody is "It's showtime, it's yo time," and I'm like, well, that's not quite poetry.
In this album,
No, no, just
wait,
like in general in my life of writing. Um,
what's that from again?
Nothing. It's from
It's
nothing.
times. Okay.
But it feels like
Sounds
it
like
should be, right?
sounds like it could be from a lot of things.
Like a very generic line.
Like yeah, that it can't. It doesn't seem like it would be in a Tracy Chapman song.
But yeah, her lyrics feel like they're poetry that somebody has put to acoustic guitar.
Yeah, she was definitely deep in thought, very deep in thought.
Oh,
Yeah, very thoughtful lyrics.
I don't know if I have anything else to add.
I'm not a
Um,
seasoned music critic per se, but I like talking about music.
I like talking about music as well. It's
I'm
why
just
I made these clubs.
explain.
I make the joke on the phone call of I made these clubs because I am an avid consumer of media, and I try really hard to not do it mindlessly. And
Yeah,
so this is like the perfect excuse for me to be like, nope, sorry, I can't do anything today. I have an album to listen to, and I'm going to talk about it. So I am always down to talk about music, movies, TV shows, books.
when it comes to music, I'm not trained to the extent that somebody like you is. Um, so, and not being a trained musician myself, I'm not entirely sure how to critique music necessarily.
I think you are in just a different position to see it. And I mean, music is something that's meant to be enjoyed by people more than anything else. And sure, you can
True.
analyze things and think about it in that way, but when it comes down to it, you still kind of just got to enjoy it.
Right. That's true.
What's the point of analyzing a whole bunch of things if you're not liking it? When we do our scaling system in my house for media of all kinds, it's usually like how technically well done is it?
Hmm.
And we usually have a few different categories depending on what it is. Like if it's a movie, um, like was the acting good? Was the script good? Was the camera work good? But the thing that's above all else on anything is whether or not you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Why would you pay money for a movie you wouldn't enjoy?
Yeah.
Or at least not the second time you view it. Oh, there goes that Apple charger box again. Always falls out of that socket. It's ridiculous.
Is it just the socket or is it the
It's the socket. I think I mean, these boxes weigh, I don't know how much these weigh, almost half a,
Yeah,
a
I have a
pound.
few of them. I definitely know when they're in my bag.
So this one is, yeah, I think the panel on the socket is a little loose, so
Ah,
just a slight millimeter of an angle, it'll fall out. It's kind of annoying. I need to get a power strip for that. But anyway, power strip for that outlet.
yeah. I don't think I have anything else to add to this album. So, um, do you have any final comments before we head out for the evening?
Nope, a really good pick. I'm glad that we listened to this one.
Yeah, I have to figure out what we're going to listen to next month. I hope I keep making really good picks, at least for one person. Um, but yeah, I really like having these talks. I know that we'll be talking again on Wednesday, but about a movie.
Yeah,
Um, so if you want to hear us talk about something for a little bit and then completely get off track for a while, you can come back and listen.
my video connection is delayed. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. Um,
Email isn't matching my video. Yeah.
hopefully Beckett is feeling better by Wednesday.
I know. Screw
Um,
this flu.
yeah, but yeah, I will figure out what we're going to listen to next month, and I will be announcing those picks not just for this, but for our movie club on Thursday, I believe is the first.
Cool.
Um, so we'll look forward to that. And for anybody who listened to this but wasn't able to talk to us on the call, um, you can always join us in our Facebook group, Dragonfly Arts. It's also in the corner. Um, we have a tab there that's called guides, and that will have a list of everything that we've ever listened to for these clubs. And you can always comment on there or get in touch with us through the Dragonfly group to talk about media, albums, movies. We like talking about things.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. So, unless you have anything else to add, Sam.
I've done two of these in a row now, so I might hold off on doing the movie club to give other people an opportunity. But
Yeah.
if people don't join by the time it comes around, I'm down to do it again.
Yeah. Are you joining on Wednesday or?
Yes, Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean for next month. Yeah.
Yeah, never feel pressure to join. I try to keep the calls. I think I set my limit at 4 or 5 people, depending on what the topic is. So there's usually plenty of room at the table, but it's a first come, first serve basis.
Yeah, and people might have to back out last minute, etc.
Also, it's holiday season, so I'm not expecting it to be a large and rowdy like crowd for the next couple of months.
Yeah, this month I don't know. I'm not sure about. I might be trying to take a digital break at least towards the end of December, around the new year. I don't know
Nice.
if that's realistically going to happen though, but we'll
I think it's
see.
always worth a try. I think a digital detox is amazing.
If you can afford it. Yeah, we're both contractors, right? It's not like we have to pay for our own time off, but
We pay in different ways for our own time off, though.
yeah, yeah, when planned for, I think it's not that hard.
All right. I think I think I'm going to end our stream there. So for anybody that's watching over on the Dragonfly Arts group, either on Facebook or YouTube, thank you for joining us. And look out on Thursday for our next album, and we'll hope to talk to you again then.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.